it's taken a while, but we've certainly covered a lot of ground. So hopefully we can get through those tonight. I mentioned to Captain Deacon Lyles that I ran late getting out of the office, so I'm still battling some traffic, but I will be participating. And I know Kathy's also got off of work late, and she's participated as well too. But I think for the most part, we're ready to go, and I'm ready to go live.
Okay.
You're all set.
Hey everyone.
Hi, Ken.
So I'm on my laptop now, but I'm gonna have to shut it down and get home.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be on my phone, so I'm not gonna be able to see the screen. So I guess I'll just be listening today, and if I hear something, I'll try to chime in.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, so it looks like we are live now. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's Discipline Matrix Ad Hoc Committee. I'm Chair Garcia Costa. We're joined by Captain Hubbard, Deacon Lyles, and Kathy Leonard, our great community members that have been doing the work. As we just previously mentioned, we've covered quite a bit of ground and are getting to the last batch of MOR violations that we hope to get through today, at which point we will be summarizing the bulk of our work and sending it up the ladder for approval to be reviewed, and really trying to get as much of department, union, city attorney buy-in to support the changes and the recommendations that we've made through this quite extensive process that we've been carrying out with each other. I would like to just formally, before we get into this last section of it, just thank our panelists here. You all have brought such invaluable insight, work, dedication, and love to this process. And then obviously Captain Hubbard for keeping us on track, doing a lot of work in that you put into it. Hopefully I'm not freezing. Did I freeze? My phone deleted you at first. And Captain Hubbard, so we can just jump right into the next batch of more violations that we're going to review. But actually, before that, I think there were a couple final versions that we touched up from our last meeting. Is that correct?
We did. Yeah, I mean, I probably won't spend too much time going over what we talked about last time just because I sent that via email. But basically,
Okay.
we finished up the use of force, which is great. And we had some manual of rule sections that we addressed, but we left off, and I wish I thought about this earlier. Just I did it in this format to help us just kind of see it all kind of together here. But we left off with 31439, which is unintentional search, seizure, and arrest. What you're going to see here in this chart, if you can see my screen, is you're going to see the current MOR sections. These are what's currently in the discipline matrix, and then the definition on the right-hand side. So I don't have to flip back and forth between screens. So for unintentional search, seizure, and arrest, we have the first offense, which is counseling to 3-day suspension. The second offense, which is 3-day suspension to a 10-day suspension. And the third is a 10-day suspension to a 30-day suspension. So how do we feel about that range that's currently written?
Give us an example of a unintentional search and seizure.
Yeah, no, and I know we had this lengthy discussion before, just like when an officer does something that it has intentionality behind it. This speaks more towards mistakes that officers make, and just remember that there's different variables to search, seizures, and arrests. Obviously, one could be more intrusive than the other, such as, for example, me, let's say unintentionally, let's just say I done a bonehead mistake. If I walk into someone's house without a warrant, I completely search the place. Well, that's very intrusive. Okay. And there's going to be a lot of aggravating factors there. But there's also Fourth Amendment implications of me, let's say popping someone's trunk and I briefly look inside and closing it. Those two things do not carry the same weight. So there's also like the discussion of regarding search, use, and arrest. If we stick to everything's intentional, then it kind of, I don't know, defeats the case law argument, as in there's debate every single day across the country about Fourth Amendment. There's case law, and we don't if we want there to be discipline with it, but at the same time, we have to look at the seriousness of the offense, but also the disagreement that may happen internally about whether something's illegal or not, based on if case law exists. Yeah.
Not good. I don't understand an unintentional search. You intended to search. You don't care about the law. You're angry. The guy pissed you off. So you're gonna pop his trunk and do what you're gonna do. I don't mind the first time you do that. You let your emotions get away from you, so we can give you counseling, at the first round of that. But I don't think it's unintentional search and seizure. You have to want to search somebody, and I'm sure if the person, the individual, is saying you have no right to search my car, I'm not giving you permission, and you do it anyway, that's intentional. So I guess if you're patting somebody down for weapons and somehow your hand slips into his pocket, maybe that can be argued as unintentional. But other than that, if you searching somebody, you're intending to do it. Because
Right.
that's something we don't do to each other every day. Go through their stuff. We know what privacy is, and police officers definitely have to know what privacy is.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm wondering if what makes something unintentional is that something that maybe the suspect or officer themselves don't even know it happened, and it's just like observed on body camera that they peeked in the car when they shouldn't have, or something like that, that it was just so quick that the officer didn't even realize they did it, and the person that was violated didn't even realize that the violation happened. I mean, I'm just trying to, again, like to Deacon Lyle's point, seems like an illegal search and seizure would be very intentional, right? For it to be unintentional, like I'm trying to wrap my mind around what a mistake
Yeah,
like that can look like.
I don't understand. If you pop in somebody's trunk, like you said, Lieutenant, Captain, excuse me, if you pop in somebody's trunk, that's part of the search.
Yeah.
So you intended to do that. The looking inside part is just auxiliary. But the fact that you opened a locked trunk without permission, that's intentional right there. If you looked in the trunk or not. Okay, so I'm gonna cut the shot. I think it should be the first time counseling, but it's got to be more than 3 days. I'd say counseling 3 to 5 days first time out, and if you do it again, start at 3 to 10 days. And I think you ought to be terminated if there's a third time that you're searching somebody. You're violating the Fourth Amendment. It's got to be, if not the most precious constitutional right we have, it's up in the top 2 or 3.
I have to agree with Reggie on that one. Unintentional search, seizure, or arrest makes no sense to me. Particularly unintentional search and seizure. How could that be unintentional?
Yeah.
I just don't
It's an
get that.
oxymoron to me.
Yeah. It's just the reason why it's there though is because we're asking young officers to understand the law in its fullness, and so I would say like your example of like, well, I don't like you, I'm going to search you. That's intentional, and that's a class 1. That's a different section, and that holds much more severe punishment. But a young officer who thinks that they have enough reasonable suspicion, let's say, to pat search someone based on their articulation of that they're armed or dangerous, and then someone who's been around like longer than myself saying, well, no, you didn't, and they got it wrong. There was no intentionality of violating that person's Fourth Amendment rights. It's just they misunderstood the law. So it was an unintentional violation of the law, in other words. So that's
not unintentional. If they got it wrong, if they misunderstood the law, I get that. So we're counseling them. This first time you did it, you've been found guilty of that. But it's not unintentional. Let's not carve out an activity that's illegal. All of the unintentional search is an illegal search. So let's call it what it is. I mean, there's no category for unintentional murder. I mean, that's murder in the second degree. You did murder somebody. So
yeah.
We making it like you oopsed into this. There's no falling into, I didn't mean to do something illegal. No, if you search someone's body, house, car against their without their permission or a warrant, that's illegal. It's one or the other. There's no in between here. And I think
question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm done.
So I think one way to get officers not to break the law in this fashion would be role playing. I mean, in the academy, don't you have role playing where you say, okay, well, you know, you role play.
Kathy,
and then you could say, you know what, well, that was an intentional search, or you thought that was unintentional, but here's why it was not unintentional.
Trust me.
To me, this just seems like an out, because every officer is going to say, oops, that was unintentional.
Trust me, in the academy and in the FTO program, their role playing is one teaching strategy is used, but they're tested on it. They have to read, they have to, you know, and they're questioned about it over and over and over about, you know, the Fourth Amendment and rights. So there's no officer that comes out of California Academy should be confused about what is an illegal search. Not one. And if they don't understand it, they shouldn't come out of the academy. And if they get to the FTO program and still don't understand it, they should be fired.
Agreed.
I don't accept that unintentional stuff at all.
Well, we already removed the word unintentional before, so I guess the question is, can we create a class 2 category for this?
Giselle, how you doing?
Got you in your class. I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, so if you recall, we had this discussion before, and we did indeed remove unintentional. I put this in here because this is the current makeup of our MOR. So the question is there room for a class 2 section on this for search, seizure, and arrest?
Well, if the person violated 314.39-2 and they've been found responsible for that violation, and whatever the extenuating circumstances or whatever that comes, I'm you know, they can get counseling. Your first time out, you're a young officer, you know, you messed up. What you did was wrong, so we're going to counsel you this time. But we're not going to make a category, you know. So I think counseling is where that comes in. It's a young officer, he made a mistake, he got hot-headed, you know, was wrestling with a guy, and he got punched in the nose, and he lost his cool, and he ended up tossing the guy's trunk when he shouldn't have done it. I get that. Okay,
and I'm particularly concerned because you're violating someone's constitutional rights.
Absolutely.
It's not just a rule.
Yeah.
You know, it's the Constitution.
Yeah.
You know, that's the highest law, so to speak, in the land. And if officers are violating the Constitution, I mean, I don't think counseling gets it. If you've gone through all this training and the role playing, I don't know.
I'm not saying everyone gets counseling. I would say that if there's extenuating circumstances, I can't think of it at the top of my head, that you know, this is a great officer, he's never been in trouble before, you know, you blew it this time, we'll give you a counseling. I can live with that. What I can't live with is, you know, calling it something like unintentional. I don't know what that means. There's no such thing as that in the law. You know,
Okay.
either you violated somebody's constitutional rights with an illegal search and seizure.
Okay, so understood. The range, so are we in agreement that the first is counseling to S5, second S3 to S10, last is termination?
Yeah, I would like us to have the latitude to start as low as possible. Because to me it doesn't what's not as important is whether it was intentional or not. If it was an illegal search, it was an illegal search. But there should be enough latitude where you could review the circumstances of it. And if it's not that egregious, if it was a technicality, if it was a mistake that could be corrected with counseling, we should have that ability to start that low. Then I also agree with by the third time, maybe we should be looking at something more steep because we don't want people to keep on using that same out over. And there needs to be a deterrent from it happening over and over again, for
Okay,
sure.
let me look at this from the point of the defendant who's being charged
Right.
with a crime. So the search is illegal. Now he's got to hire an attorney. His parents may have to take out a mortgage on the home.
Yeah.
He's arrested. Can't get that time back. Now he's booked. Suppose he had never been booked before in his life. So now he's got a picture. You can't erase the booking. This person is, in a sense, marred for life.
Absolutely.
You know, if you could get rid of that arrest altogether, get rid of the booking photo, which they're not going to do. It's a harm that exists through the life of this defendant, and that's why I believe that the discipline should be a little stricter. It's not just a one-time thing for this person. The cop gets away with it. He gets a slap on the wrist, but then the defendant has to suffer.
No, the defendant has. You bring up another point that I was thinking about. The reason why I think like the third time they should be terminated, it makes me think they're not learning, and I believe that you put the city general fund at risk because that defendant, that person has a right to sue the city for false arrest.
Right. Yeah.
And generally, if it's an illegal search, the judge is not going to say, well, maybe this is an unintentional search. He's going to toss that case, or the DA is going to drop the case. You mean you searched the car without permission, without a warrant? We're dropping this. Now, again, like you said, a person may have spent a night in jail or 2 nights in jail, or whatever, and they ought to be able to be compensated with a civil suit.
I know, but
And
if I had my druthers, I don't want to spend 1 night in jail, particularly if it's because my constitutional rights were violated.
I'm with you on
That's so offensive.
Yeah.
I think that, this will never happen, at least in our lifetime. But if officers had to share and pay in the civil suits, trust me, those unintentional or any type of illegal searches would drop dramatically.
Absolutely. I believe that. And I think if instead of unintentional, we put illegal search, that officers would get the message that this is not we're not going to make a way out for you where you can dirty search somebody and get away with it. That's what we used to call it now in my day. So this is one of these built-in systemic ways for officers to break the law and not be held accountable by calling it unintentional searches. So it is what it is. The judges, there's no such thing as unintentional search in the law. It's either you searched it with a warrant or permission, or it's an illegal search in a violation of the constitutional rights. So it shouldn't be 314.39-2 should not be unintentional search. It should be illegal search, seizure, or arrest, because that's what it is. And we're not setting these laws up to benefit the officer. We're setting these regulations up to prevent the officers from drowning themselves
Right.
in bad
And protecting the public.
Exactly. And the officer is not on equal status with the public. They work for us. They're supposed to be protecting the citizens' rights.
Okay. Yeah. So how are we feeling with this range then? Do we want to make any adjustments?
I'm good with the range, but Kathy has her feelings. But why unintentional should be changed to illegal search?
No, we did. Remember, under the manual of rules, we changed it already. We talked about this already, so we already had that definition changed.
Okay, is that going to appear on this matrix also?
It will eventually. So the matrix is separate from the manual of rules. We have a different. I have to like update everything, so it will renew once I import that over. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We got it. So I know, Kathy, I don't think you can see the screen, but I'll read it again for you. So the first.
Oh, I can see it because I haven't left the office yet, so I still have my laptop up.
Sure. So this is the current range. How do you feel about C to S5, S3 to S10, and then T for the last one?
I don't know. I don't know about counseling because I'm really stuck on, you're violating someone's constitutional rights. I would want to take the counseling off.
I think we do need to allow for a mistake as part of the negotiation and say, okay, if we remove the out of unintentional, the counseling at least allows for if you do see something that isn't that egregious, it's a teachable moment that was truly a mistake and not misconduct. I think that's something that, as long as we could get to termination by the third offense, because at first the third offense didn't have a termination, right?
Right. No. And Kathy, let me give you an example just to like in your example of, taking someone to jail and them hiring, that definitely is not counseling. And this is not the starting point. That is actually absolutely an aggravating factor. If I take someone's car key and I put it in the trunk as if to open the trunk, and let's say an officer, oh, well, you don't have probable cause to do that. By me sticking a key in the trunk, that is a Fourth Amendment concern. I didn't turn the key. I didn't open anything. I didn't search anything. And there's no, I mean this respectfully, no harm done. Like the person didn't go to jail, but still it's a Fourth Amendment violation. That's where I
Just
think
by putting your key in the trunk. Now, I wouldn't see that as a Fourth Amendment violation. That's interesting.
It is. So what happens is if the chief has that case, like, hey, it's a young officer, the senior officer stopped him, but it's still a violation. That would be an example of like the chief maybe saying, hey, maybe counseling is best for you and we'll put you some through training. I just don't want you to think that, we're violating someone's Fourth Amendment rights, taking them to jail. They have to hire. Those are all aggravating factors that's got to go well beyond and above the counseling violation.
So we're speaking about young officers. Now, we know that officers have been on the force for many years, conduct illegal search and seizures. And so are we saying that those officers who've been on the force for 10, 15, 20 years would get a range on the first offense of counseling and suspension for 5 days? It seems awfully low to me for a officer who's been on the force for a long time.
Yeah, and it wouldn't. And the reason why is during the disciplinary proceedings, one of the aggravating factors is time on service. So a 20-year veteran would be held to a higher standard because they should know better, and they would aggravate up from there.
Well, Kathy,
that makes sense.
Would you feel better if it was counseling to 10 days first offense? And then second offense, 10 days to 20, and in third, termination?
I would feel better.
Sorry, Deacon Lyles, can you say that again? Counseling to S10, what was the second one?
S10 to 20. Well, you got 30 down here at these other, S10 to 20, okay, and then the third, just put 20, and then then if you did this a third time and we got on file that you've done this 3 times, you know, you don't need to work here.
Yeah, I think that with this range, officers understand, or I hope that they would understand the seriousness of what they've done.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Sounds good.
All right. Performance of duty general 3-1439. All right. So just as a reminder, this is somewhat like a very general performance of duty issue. So just as and like we have a policy that says um oh, okay, I'll give you an example that I need a commander approval before I send out an email to everyone. And it making sure that one, it's applicable to the city of Oakland, it's not offensive, anything like that. So let's say I sent out this email without commander approval, and it's not an offensive email. It's just something like, hey, come to my softball game or something. That's a violation of policy. There's not a specific manual of rule section that addresses that email, so it's just straight performance of duty general. That's an example. So it's almost like if it doesn't apply anywhere else, it would apply here type of an offense. And the current range is counseling to S2. The second is written reprimand to S5, and then S3 to S30. This is a very, very common manual of rules section that we sustain for. And it hasn't been an issue, I should say. Like, we haven't had a lot of internal debate over whether the range is not meaningful. It's so just to let you know, and I believe the commission has also weighed in on this also during discipline proceedings. Any questions on that?
I don't have any.
Okay.
I don't either.
Great. The next one is performance of duty. We made a separate one for this because this is specific to body worn camera. And this is where if a member fails to activate, deactivate, or properly maintain their body worn camera, we have a policy on that. Then the range is written reprimand to S5. Second one is S2 to S10. Third one is S10 to S30.
So why does the second actually go down? I mean, the first one is a 5-day suspension, and then the second one is 2 days to 10.
That's the lower end. So remember when we discuss discipline, we start in the middle. So we don't start with written. We start in the middle between written and S5, which would be an S2, S3, and then we aggravate, mitigate from there. Same thing for the second. It's in between S2 and S10, which would put you at S7, S5, S6, that area. So it looks like it's going down, but it's actually the middle of those things.
I heard what you said. I don't know if I'm fully understanding
Yeah,
what you're saying.
sure. Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain. So it's easier in these discipline meetings. So we have task 45, which is the consistency of discipline. So people, you shouldn't say, hey, we like Brian Hubbard. We want to start with the lower end, which is written. We want to be Brian Hubbard is just like everyone else. We're going to start in the middle. So what's the middle of written to S5? Let's say S3.
Mm-hmm.
They're mitigating and aggravating factors. Like, well, Brian Hubbard has been here for 25 years. That's an aggravating factor. Mitigating could be, well, it was a chaotic scene. So when he got out of his car, he was under stress and he didn't think to activate his body worn camera in a timely fashion. So that's a mitigating factor, and you kind of land where it needs to land based on those factors. So that we do that across the board for all of these manual of rule sections.
Is the written reprimand is more severe than the counseling? Is that correct?
It is.
Okay, that's punitive, right? And
Yes.
counseling is not punitive. All right.
Yeah.
The failure to activate your body worn camera is probably one of the more severe issues around discipline that we have in law enforcement that that in the last 50 years. We got body worn cameras at a high expense to these communities because people were dying. They were being beaten to death and choked to death, and there was no evidence. And officers weren't telling the truth. They were colluding with one another, and that's why communities invested in body worn cameras. So I think this penalty of punishment is too light, way too light. Look, you got to turn on your camera. We're not going to accept excuse, or we may accept it one time that you were under stress or whatever and you forgot to do it. But you're a police officer, you're not a baker. You know, your job is to get out that car at a 4:15, turn that body worn camera on. It is as severe to me as you hitting the street and you forgot your weapon, or you forgot your handcuffs, or you forgot where you parked your car. So
Yeah,
I think this is
yeah,
way
I have
too
to
light.
agree with that. Yeah.
Wait, I mean, the amount of money that the communities have invested in these cameras, which at one point we thought we didn't need. We always needed them, to tell you the truth. But at one point we thought we didn't need them because the officers were always telling the truth. Now with these cameras, found out that's not true. So turn those darn cameras on. And so, I don't know. Counseling
Yeah.
days is too light. I mean, wait a minute. Written reprimand, excuse me.
Yeah.
Written reprimand to 5 days is way too light. It ought to be 5 days to 10 days at your first offense. But come to think of it, you don't want to turn the officers off. I would say counseling to 10 days the first time out. And that's latitude for the chief to figure out under the mitigating circumstances what he wants to do. And then the second offense, it ought to be 10 to 20 days. And if you did this the third time and we found you that you've done this 2 times before, we want to fire you. You should be terminated.
Yeah, Deacon
And
Lyles, I think you're
officers
spot
see
on.
the severity of it. And then you can argue because it cost us millions of dollars.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you, Deacon Lyles, on the severity of it. I like lowering the reprimand to counseling, but then upping the higher part of the range. I also like that it mirrors the search, seizure, and arrest range as well too.
Yeah, I understand. Just if I can play devil's advocate, I just want to be clear that it's not full failure. And especially, and I hear what you're saying, especially during use of force incident or something, it looks very suspicious when you don't activate your body worn camera. But this is any failure of the policy. So if I get out of my car and I don't activate, and I, let's say, activate it 2 seconds later, that's a sustained finding. So it's not full non-activation. It can include delayed activation, which there may be a lot of factors behind that.
And if that was the case, we'd be able to mitigate down to counseling then at that point, right?
I mean, yeah, one would hope so. And I'll give you another example. Our cameras buffer, and if I come to this building and use the restroom and I turn it off, sometimes I forget to turn it back on. So when I'm driving to a scene and I then activate it timely, it doesn't have that buffer, you would be sustained for this policy. So there's a lot of non-intentional ways that this can get people sustained.
Well,
And
should we lower the second offense from 10 days down to I don't know. I mean, no, not the first offense. I like that. I'm talking the second offense.
I mean, we really can't. If we're ending with S10 here, then it starts with S10 on the second one.
You can't go to counseling? You can't say, yeah, it's the second time, but they're mitigating circumstances like the buffering, blah, 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 whatever. But the top end is 20 days because we find you responsible and that that you did this either by negligence or intentionality. And we're not sure, and we can't prove either way, but we don't like it. This is the second time it happened to you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the other, yeah,
Could that second would be counseling?
the problem is if like the officer here got, let's say, a 5-day suspension,
Right.
and then let's say the next one is it's the same violation but not as egregious based on the circumstances, it's hard to go down from S5 to counseling. You have to,
Okay.
because it's progressive discipline.
But this gives the chief latitude based on this particular officer, correct? The officer that we're talking about, first time out, he got 5 days. Second time out, even if we lower that from to 5 days to 20 days, we're not giving you 5 days because you have a history. Your first time out, you got 5 days. So you're getting 15 days this time.
That range is a little bit easier to understand. Yeah, S5 to S20.
And then the third time, you're uncoachable. No, it's still termination.
I can tell you also, like, even if we go back to the search season arrest, if we get to the second offense for these officers where the third time could be termination, the chief would likely pull them off the street. So they're not even in a position to get into trouble. It's just a risk management decision.
Well, I'm not the chief. I'm gonna let the chief do what he thinks is best. But then why do we have him if he can't do his job?
No, I understood, but I wouldn't say they're a bad officer if they are consistently not, if they're not inconsistent with them activating their body worn camera. Of course, there's much more aggravating factors behind that.
Yes,
But yeah,
because we know what we're trying to eliminate the worst case scenario,
yes,
which is somebody got beaten, somebody got shot, and then we go, okay, let's look at the body worn. Oh, we forgot to turn it on. That's why we have the cameras. That's
for
what we're
sure.
trying to eliminate. So
Yeah.
we got to keep our focus on that, the behavior that we want to eradicate, which is some officers colluding to hurt somebody.
For sure.
Turn your camera off.
Yeah.
And we've had incidences of that in pretty infamous cases right here in Oakland.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
which cost the city enormous amount of money. So these guys have to be brought into proper behavior.
Yeah. Okay, so counseling to S10, S5 to S20, and then termination.
That's how I feel about it.
Okay. Performance of duty, care of property. This is where an officer just is responsible for one's property and doesn't care for it. An example that I have seen, we have fixed this even recently, is officers, they put one's belongings on, see, we have an echo there. We put one's property on the hood of our car, let's say, and then we drive off.
Mm.
Yeah, and like we lose one's identification, or like car keys, for example. We think that we secured and we did, and they're lost. Little things like that. So we do have a number of sustains that are related to this, and the range right now is counseling and training to S2, written to S5, and then S5 to S30. Again, we do have a lot of sustains for this, and I have not had a case where anything was intentional, but no real internal debate over this range right now. It's pretty tight, so it gives the chief understanding and latitude based on aggravating and mitigating circumstances. Any issues with the current?
Okay, I've transferred to my phone now, so I probably won't be able to see anything because I'll be walking down the street,
Sure.
but I can hear.
Okay. All right, hearing none, I'll move on to the next. So we have obedience to laws, misdemeanor infraction. This is counseling to S2, S2 to S10, and S10 to S30. We do have these. Usually they're attached to other things. I'll give you a common one, especially with the California laws now with the driver's license. We had a number of people who, what is it? Real clear ID? What's the California, whatever the real ID is. There are some issues, just people being timely with that. And so technically it's, driver's license status violation and they receive discipline for that. That's a common one that we see. We don't have a lot of officers committing misdemeanors out there. But we do see them occasionally. And remember, this is not DUIs. DUIs are a separate category that we already addressed. These are misdemeanors infractions.
Yeah.
Any issues with this range? Okay. Criticism?
Let's see. So this one is saying that officers should obey the law.
Yes.
Okay, so you know which case I'm thinking of, Captain Hubbard. I'm thinking of the guy who didn't report the accident, and neither did his girlfriend. They were both OPD officers. I don't know that she was ever disciplined. And so he would get counseling to a suspension up to 2 days. When he knew he had hit the car because his brake lights, he stopped, thought about whether or not he should put a note on the guy's car, didn't, drove off. So that officer would receive counseling to suspension up to 2 days.
If it is deemed a misdemeanor, then yes, but also understand that there are other manual of rules violations there. It's not just this one. And those
Okay.
violations would stack. Yeah. And that, I want to be general here, but, charging decisions by the district attorney's office also play a role in aggravating factors because that's where we're getting into more. We're using the preponderance standard, but they have a higher level. So if they get to that level where there's, type of resources in the DA's office, public interest, all these different things, those are aggravating factors. Yeah.
But we know our current DA goes very lightly on officers. I'm just going to say that and leave it alone.
Yeah. Anything else for obedience to laws?
I think it should be higher than a suspension of 2 days. I mean, if you're arresting someone for disobeying the laws, why are you getting a slap on the wrist? And that's your job, to know what the law is, to arrest people who are violating the law, but then you violate the law and get a slap. I don't know. Something is making me uncomfortable with that.
This would be the officer doing a violation in another jurisdiction, right? At his home or with a.
Not necessarily. I mean, it could happen in Oakland, but yeah, it's not on duty. It's not assumed to be off duty. I guess it could.
Yeah, I guess the officer could live in Oakland. Yeah.
Yeah, or commit the offense on duty. Like if I want to get back at someone, I vandalize their property, that would be a misdemeanor offense. And
Oh, wow.
I just think it's a little bit heavier because I'm on duty. You can argue other manual of rules violations, not just that one.
If an officer on duty committed a misdemeanor intentionally,
Yes.
committed a misdemeanor. You think they should be counseled? What do you think?
No. That's like the starting range, but I mean, you can aggravate up. It's just this is the range from.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I would say counseling would be like I didn't get my real ID on time. I was 1 day late, but it was technically
I,
my
I
license was expired. That's probably counseling.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But now we whipped in the word misdemeanor, and misdemeanor covers a lot of stuff, a lot of
Yes.
crimes.
Yes.
So if you vandalize someone's property in uniform, you mad at somebody who filed a citizen complaint against you. So you found their car and broke out their rear view, their red light, brake light, you know, or took a key to their car, scratched it up. It's a misdemeanor.
Yes.
Or you slap somebody, it's a misdemeanor because you're getting even with them.
Let's go back to the real ID issue. So are you saying that an officer would be driving around with no driver's license?
Yes.
Oh, come on. That's a function of your duty. That's not a slap on the wrist. I'm
It, it
sorry.
it wouldn't be. I'm saying obedience to laws would be, but you have other factors there that they would be held accountable for. So don't just think of it as like we're only investigating them for obedience to laws. It could be other things too.
Okay, so let's use your example. They don't have a driver's license and they're driving around. So what other discipline would they be facing besides this one here?
I would say definitely performance of duty. It depends on, like, are they 1 day late or are they, if they're delinquent by 6 months, where they intentionally, ignored all the, demands from DMV. It could be an act of insubordination because we have a mechanism of identifying people who have expired license, and if they don't do it, it would be insubordination. So those are just examples of how, it could be stacked against them if they continue or they do this.
Yeah, well, I think that if you don't have a driver's license and you're a cop, that's a red flag. That should definitely not be a counseling event. That's your job. You can't perform your job if you don't have a driver's license. Now other officers have to pick up the slack. I don't know about that one. You guys got to give me a more persuasive argument.
All right. Well, let's say I don't renew in a timely fashion my personal vehicle for registration. That's an infraction. Has nothing to do really with me driving on duty. It's just I didn't renew my registration on time.
Yeah, but if you're a cop who's driving a car, that's a problem.
Oh, it is. It's not,
It can't be just that, I missed it by 1 day or 6 months. 1 day is bad news. You're getting behind the car and you're driving and you don't have a driver's license. There's certain things that I believe officers should do. And having a driver's license is certainly one of them. Having that body cam running is another one. Not violating the Constitution. There's certain things that rise above a lot of other things.
no doubt. I just understand, please, that the range is there. Not everything is the same, and we do have to allow for mistakes. We can't program perfect officers, and things happen, and so that's where the range comes in. What we're
Well,
saying, if we remove counseling from this equation, then we're saying under no circumstance, under any example, would counseling ever be appropriate. And that may be true. And maybe I'm falling short of coming up with good examples here, but there might be that example where they just messed up and it was only 1 day of a mess up, and maybe counseling is best.
so how would you know if an officer let his license lapse? Is that
Yeah.
something that would that person have to self-report?
One would hope so, but what we do here is we have our communications division. Based on
Hmm.
one's last name, we do file checks on people and we discover if their license has been expired or suspended. Yeah. Watch commanders also during inspections, they will sometimes ask for driver's license to as a just a spot inspection.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, rare. I haven't, especially with the IDs, it has happened. And I remember the stress that I had to go through just to get the real ID. Finding my birth certificate was not easy. I ended up getting it on time, but that was a real stress. And I know similar people had similar issues. And yeah, but
Hmm.
Well, I'm not so sold on removing the counseling as an option as I am, or I feel like it's more important to have the first offense have a greater range than just S2. So if we're talking
okay.
about a misdemeanor or
Right.
an infraction, I'm okay with leaving counseling, but I don't think the range should be so tight that the most they could get is a 2-day suspension
Yeah.
for committing a misdemeanor on the first one.
The crime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So counseling to, what do we think?
How bad of a misdemeanor can we get where it's still a misdemeanor?
Well, under new laws, I mean, in California especially, I mean, they can get pretty egregious. I mean, the wobblers we push to felonies, so I wouldn't worry about that. But like theft is a misdemeanor, depending on and
Yeah.
vandalism and other things, and you can go down the list, certainly. So I don't need to like let's take the most egregious misdemeanor, and that should be the first offense because the chief, I know, absolutely would aggravate up based on the circumstances of that.
When you say aggravate up, you mean he would say, yes, it's your first offense, but I'm going to use the discipline range at the second offense.
The chief can terminate if he wants to. He can go
Mm.
outside the matrix
Okay, got it. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
for any of these, and he has, and he does. He does. Yeah. So counseling to S,
5,
okay,
I'm good with that.
and then the second offense is
5 to 10, I guess.
okay, an S 10 to 30.
This would be your third misdemeanor you've been brought up
Or infraction.
or
So that's the thing is you can commit the misdemeanor on the first offense, and the second one is a very minor infraction, let's say. You technically have to progressive discipline, you have to move
Mm.
up. Yeah.
like you said, the chief can aggravate up and terminate. Yeah,
Yes.
I could do 10 to 30. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, criticism. I have not experienced this before, but this is where, pursuant to their official duties, not engage in public criticism of the department. So let's just say, like, I use this forum to like criticize the department as being whatever. That would be a violation of criticism. The range on that is counseling to S3, written to S3, and then S3 to S30.
I don't like the second one. And this is severe because when we're trying to draw this city together and get along with the police, we have had incidents, as you well know, of officers saying, bad things about the department and city government to residents, to neighborhood watch groups, even in the midst of, training of young officers.
Yeah.
That we've had folks say, criticize the department. So, that's not where you hired. If you want to express yourself, wait till you get home.
Yeah, agreed.
You don't do that on duty at all, as far as I'm concerned.
I think you should do it off duty either.
Well, then we got a free speech issue there.
Yeah.
So you got to factor that in. So I don't know.
Criticizing your employer? Ugh.
Counseling,
I'm sorry, Deacon,
But the
go ahead.
counseling 5 days, the first offense, and then second offense, 5 days to 10 days.
Okay.
And then, I don't know, 10 to 30, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good. Kathy, I don't want you to think that we would get away with criticizing or being even insubordinate off duty. Social media gets, as you know, gets people in trouble. And if I
Right.
were on social media writing disparaging remarks against the department, I would be violating policy. It might not fit within this section, but I would be held accountable for that, probably under performance of duty. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I could do away with all social media. And I would do that for every agency because it's across the country. It's just devastating.
Yeah, I agree. But in so many ways, it's very helpful too.
It
But
is.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Great. The next one is conflict of interest. Very rare. I don't think I've ever seen this. No member employee shall engage in any employment, activity, or enterprise which has or may be determined to be inconsistent, incompatible, or in conflict with his or her duties, functions, and responsibilities in accordance with the provisions of the city administrative instructions. I would say this is usually like campaign type stuff. Uh, I mean, I can't think of another employment that you have to get approval for that anyway. So that's a different section if I get a secondary job and I don't seek improvement from the chief. But if there's any job that I would take or any off-duty activity that directly conflicts with me as a police officer working for the city of Oakland, then that would be conflict of interest. So the range on that is counseling to S3, written to S3, S3 to S30. If I had a real example, uh, this would be easier, but I just don't. So,
I understand.
any issues with that range?
So let's see, that's conflict of interest. So the job of an officer is very stressful. My uncle was actually a police officer killed in the line of duty in San Francisco. It's a very stressful job. What did I say that to say? Oh, so it just seems like at the end of a day, you wouldn't want to go to a second job. I mean, are you really,
No.
it seemed like you'd want to go home and debrief and just kind of relax and chill, but it's so that you'd be ready for the next day's work, nice and fresh,
Well,
clear thinking.
yeah, how about this? Let me give you an example. And this is not real, but I mean, just popped in my head. So let's say someone wants to hire me to do consulting work. It's not, and I don't get approval. Let's just say I just do it. And then here I am, I'm using our current policy to get them to advocate for something that would be against our principles. So, for example, let's say that I won't give a company name, but let's say a camera company says, "Hey, you're an experienced police officer. What advice can you give us to go around to different cities to convince them to get cameras to then share with ICE?" And here I am working against what we value here to help them. That would be definitely a conflict of interest.
Oh my God, it sure would be.
I mean, that's an extreme example, but that's one where it's like I'm getting paid to leverage what I gathered here in my favor and against city values.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, that's a great example.
If true, I would hope the chief aggravates up from that too, if that were that
Right.
example. But yeah. Okay. Hearing none, then I'll move on. Debts incurring in payment. This is members and employees shall strive to pay off all just debts and to pay all just debts and legal liabilities incurred by them in a timely manner per the agreed upon terms. Just to give you context, just in internal affairs, every year, if you work in a certain unit, we do look at your credit history, and this is actually an NSA task that was born from the NSA, and we do that. not to be judgmental against those who may have debt. It's are you more than likely going to steal money if you have all this debt and here you are in these specialized units who can do this? So we don't want people to be irresponsible, but if there's collections going after people, we're likely going to find out about it here, and this is where that section would apply.
I think it's appropriate. And I
Yeah.
think the majority of this is going to be around child custody payment and rearages and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if
You
we,
don't want to be susceptible to bribes either.
for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so you know how it ties into the rest of the MRs, if there's a court order that you violate, if you're contempt of court, that's obedience to laws. So it's not just this, it's additional MOR. So there's other varying factors here.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
the current range on that is counseling to S2, S2 to S5, and then S5 to S30.
Yeah. And you may have a gambling problem.
Right.
And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
we had a notorious situation like that with an OPD officer, you know, that ended up in a homicide. So
Does gambling debt and like how do you find out about that? Does that come across in like credit checks or things like that if you're taking out loans, or how would you get to the bottom of somebody having a gambling problem? I could imagine that being a big problem.
It is, yeah. I mean, if collections are going after you, and sometimes we'll just figure it out based on one's credit history and just improprieties there,
you want to
inconsistent.
know why. I mean,
Yeah.
you're making a lot of money, man. Why are you in such debt? Then you find out guys at the racetrack or catching an airplane out of OPD, out of Oakland, to fly up to Tahoe to gamble all night and then fly back in the morning to go to work in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
good.
guys doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No bueno.
Yeah. I won't mention any names, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay. Any issues with that range? C to S2, S2 to S5, S5 to S30? Okay. Okay, moving along here. Thank you. Prohibited activity on duty. So this is kind of a catch-all also, but it says you're prohibited in the following. You're prohibited from engaging in the following while on duty: sleeping, loafing, idling, conducting private business, carrying of articles not associated with the performance of police duties, gambling, unless to further police purpose. And then just note that sexual activity on duty is a separate class one. So this is not sexual activity on duty. This is just you caught Brian Hubbard sleeping in his office, that would fall under this. If I'm not doing my job and I'm just decided to search all ends of the internet just to goof off, that would fall under this. We go as far to say is like, I remember this in field training. It's like if you want to read on duty, let's say during downtime, that you read policy. You don't open up your books, and it's just so you're stealing money from the city. So the range on that is counseling to S2, S2 to S5, S5 to S30. No issues on this either. We do get this occasionally, but not the range hasn't been an issue internally.
You ever had a frequent flyer that's a frequent loafer?
Well, I can't go into detail, but you might remember we might have had this discussion. And usually it's attached to something else. Like
Gotcha.
you're doing this, why were you doing it? But did you do it under the umbrella of loafing or idling? And if yes, that would be a separate charge. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Loitering, on-duty members and employees and off-duty members in uniform shall not enter bars, taverns, or theaters except to perform police tasks. Loitering and unnecessary conversation in such locations is forbidden. Uh, I have never seen this before. I'm sure there's a deep history with this back in the day, but I don't see or know of any members who are just entering bars or taverns or theaters to perform a police task. Now, I will give you this example.
To do what?
Just to loiter, and I'll give you an example. So when the Coliseum, they still do. Let's say that there's an artist at the Coliseum that's performing, and I'm like, hey, that's a favorite artist. I wanted to go stop by and watch them perform. That would be loitering because I clearly don't have a reason to be there as a police officer unless I'm working that event, and I just want to go see my favorite artist perform. Like that would be a violation of this section.
Okay. I know there were some cops loitering at that bar. Remember that? I don't know how long you've been in Oakland, Captain, but remember that bar on, I think it was on Webster Street that all the cops used to go to
Oh yeah,
At night.
at night and
warehouse.
during the day? I went there. I used to
No,
work
it
on
was
Second and
that's the name
Webster.
of it, the Black
The
Knight.
warehouse.
Pardon?
Wasn't it the Black Knight?
I don't think that was the name of it.
KNIGHT.
It was right by the tunnel,
Yeah,
but
the
on the
warehouse.
other side of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to go there because they had good burgers.
Yeah, no, they shut down, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, and it's
They
tough.
shut down? That was a great place.
It was, yeah, they closed years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, it's tough because you can say let's say that you're the beat officer, it's like, hey, I'm doing security checks. I'm there to make sure that there's no issues, and this is just for any bar. And that may be true, but supervisors are supposed to be on people, especially if it's a busy night in Oakland. I just don't want you hanging around these areas for whatever reason you come up with, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you know it when you see it type of situation.
Yes,
Right.
one of the big complaints is that an incident went down and you got 15 officers all standing on the corner.
Yeah.
No, get back in duty. Get back in the truck.
Yeah.
To work.
So any issues with that range C to S2, S2
I
to
don't
S5?
know, but let me ask you a question. So, I go through downtown every day to my office out in East Oakland. And a number of times I've seen like a vehicle stopped, 2 people are in the car, but I see 4 police cars out there. And I'm wondering why so many?
Yeah.
It's clearly not a violent episode because the officers, I could imagine 2 cars. You've got a person on either side of the car, and then maybe you have some backup behind the cars to make sure nobody gets killed, like my poor uncle did. But 4 police cars? I don't understand that.
Yeah, as
That
supervisors,
seems to me to be loitering.
it can be. It can be. And supervisors, commanders don't like it. We call that rock piling.
Mhm.
And there might be a legitimate reason for it also. It's just, if they're just rock piling, if you will. I mean, this is more specific to taverns, and of course I wish I knew the history of this, of why they made it specific to that.
It has to do with Emeryville. There used to
What's
be a
that?
lot of gambling in Emeryville down San Pablo, and
Uh-huh.
cops used to go. Man, matter of fact, one of the
Oh, that's true. They were known for
gambling dens is still there, across
Right.
from that Bank of America, on San Pablo in Emeryville.
Oak Street, the Oak Club.
The old club.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
they was down there, and it used to be because we get great lunch down there. They got great food down there. Yeah, we just coming to get something to eat.
Well, they did have good food.
But it was down there gambling.
Right.
Yeah. 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 So anyway, I mean, I don't have any recent examples of anyone getting sustained for this, but any questions on the range? Comments? Okay. Tardiness. Members and employees shall report to duty at the time and place specified, properly uniformed and equipped. All right. So before you think that everyone who's tardy, we just open up an internal affairs case and waste workforce hours to get that done. We don't. Tardiness, it can happen It can happen to the best of us, things, traffic, family issues. The chronic tardy person, we find there's deeper issues at stake there. And we first try to mentor, train, and correct before we go into actual discipline. So please don't think, hey, you're 30 seconds late, we're dropping a case on you, because that's not a good use of our time, anyone's and the taxpayer money. But if we do have the chronic tardy person who's just not responding to training, the range is counseling to S2, written to S3, S3 to S30. And I have never seen this before, by the way. Usually counseling, training, mental health checks, and other wellness type things have fixed the problem.
Especially
Okay.
when you got kids.
Yeah. Tough. Okay. Relief. Members and employees shall remain at their duty assignment until properly relieved by another member, employee, or until dismissed by competent authority. The range on this is counseling to S2, S2 to S10, S10 to S30. I'll give you an example of this, especially during the fire season. We have traffic control posts that are set up either for an active fire or one that just, was put out. Those traffic control posts are absolutely essential for many reasons. And if one of the officers decides, hey, I'm just going to leave and go home and leave that post open, then that would be a serious problem. So that's an example of relief. Watch commanders, we have face-to-face relief, and there's a reason for that. If we cannot have the city without a commander running it, so if the watch commander says, you know what, I'm pretty close to my end of the shift, I'm going to leave 45 minutes early, that's a serious problem. So that's an example of relief. Yeah.
Yeah, and plus they're getting paid, so they're,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or it's not even, let's say they go home. It could just be, I'm going to go back to the police station and do my paperwork. There's an issue with you leaving your post. So that would be a relief example.
Okay.
So counseling to S2, S2 to S10, S10 and S to S30.
Okay. Speaking of which, I'm coming up on I work over by the Port of Oakland's buildings on Embarcadero,
Yeah.
and I see some officers sit, maybe they're on lunch hour, but they're sitting in the parking lot. They might be on lunch hour.
We have to park to do paperwork also. We have those computers in the car, and we do use that time to type up reports. Sometimes, and I've been through this many times in my career, where sometimes the sergeant wants to meet with you and counsel you on something, and it's not a kind conversation. And sometimes those opportunities happen in parking lots when working the field.
Yeah, and this is a good spot because it's isolated. So you
Yeah.
can, if you were doing paperwork, you could get a lot accomplished.
Yeah. All right. Any issues with this range for relief?
I don't have any.
Okay. Absence from duty, or commonly known as being AWOL, absent without leave. Counseling to S3, written to S6, S6 to S30.
So AWOL, what happened? They were on the job and they just left, or they just didn't show up?
Didn't
What
show
is,
up.
what is,
Yeah.
and
Just no
didn't
call, no
call
show.
and didn't call and say anything?
No. Well, no.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so you want counseling on that?
Well, there's different severities of it, like I can tell you that there are some unintentional mistakes here where, and I'll use, like, I know when my shift starts. It's it's the same thing every day. But
Right.
sometimes, like, officers have to come in on the weekends to work sideshow just to enforce sideshow or laws. And they forget, or it just didn't make their calendar. So it's not a normal day for them. So sometimes we get those mistakes where they didn't show up and they admit to us, like, oh, I totally missed that. I mean, they would be sustained for that if that was an investigation.
Right.
You want to have a range there, but flat out, like, I am not coming in. That could be insubordination and also absence from duty. And depending on what you're not coming in for, that could be an aggravating factor.
Yeah, that could be termination if you just say I'm not coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just thinking when I was an employee, if I just said I wasn't coming in, there'd be ramifications for that.
Yes, for sure.
But if an officer's talking like that to a supervisor, there's a lot of stuff going on right there.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
You need a
Insubordination,
lot
it's a
of
lot
help.
of things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you may want to get out there and get that gun from them.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on this range?
Nope.
Okay, I know we had a discussion over physical fitness for duty. I can tell you that there are a lot of struggles with what we do with an employee and what is physical fitness for duty. Risk management with the city gets involved, city attorney's office gets involved. It's not like a subjective, hey, you look like a person who cannot or is not physically fit for this job. That's not what we're talking about here. It's usually behavior based. So the range on that, if we sustain, now this is a rare one that we would sustain for, and I actually can't think of any examples where we would, because there's usually deeper issues here. Usually there's mental health struggles, wellness issues attached to this. And so we wouldn't necessarily sustain someone for, let's say they're going through a divorce and their mind is not in the game when they come into work.
But they're depressed.
Yeah, right. But if they were sustained, the range is counseling to S2, written to S3, S3 to S30.
And then what happens after S30, the third infraction?
Probably termination.
Okay.
Likely termination. I don't. Basically, we're saying there's nothing beyond this, so termination is the only option for any.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the range, but you know what? I have seen some videos where cops have gained an excessive amount of weight and trying to chase a suspect and just had to give up. Couldn't do it. And so is there to officers like, do they have a gym at OPD and make sure these officers are staying physically fit?
It's a union issue. See, if we set standards and stuff, you got to be this height, this weight to do this job. First of all, you have to prove what that is, and everybody will challenge you on it. And then the union would say, well, then you afford us with a health maintenance program. And
which is probably a good idea.
it's just
But
very
if you're going to be chasing suspect, I'm not fat shaming anybody, but I'm just saying that if you can't chase a suspect like a block without getting super winded and bending over, trying to catch your breath, I don't know.
Well, I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of fat guys work for me that did do that and were great officers. Running after people is just one small
I understand. I understand. Yeah.
So, but you're right.
And then, of course, I've seen people who are obese who shattered the stereotypes.
Right.
Who were on top of their game.
And then for years, they use that line of thinking that you're alluding to keep women out of law enforcement.
Yeah.
So it's a slippery slope that ends up in quicksand. I haven't seen any answer to it except for people spending a lot of money to have these elaborate health maintenance program, and union going to use every lawyer they can to make it so flexible that it has no merit to it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on this range then?
No, I don't.
All right. Intoxicants on premises. This is where a member employee shall not bring.
Sorry, I didn't hear that one.
Intoxicants on premises. So bringing alcoholic beverages.
Right. Okay.
Shall not bring into or keep any intoxicating substance on the department premises except when necessary of the performance of a police task, package goods for temporary storage in locker spaces when the seals are unbroken, or intoxicants in the furtherance of a police task properly identified and stored. So yeah, I mean, we've had this before where, you know, there's obviously a deeper issue here, but people bringing intoxicants on in the building, and it doesn't even have to have the connection of them drinking it or consuming it. It's just if it's unsealed on the property, then you're in violation of this. We don't have Christmas parties here or anything that would allow alcohol, so that would not be the police task that we're talking about. But bringing alcohol in, for example, to submit as evidence, that would be an example of when it would be acceptable.
Okay.
And so that range is counseling to S2, S2 to S5, and S5 to S30.
Can you repeat the range again?
Counseling to S2, S2 to S5, and S5 to S30.
Yes. So why would they be bringing in intoxicants that aren't packaged properly? Are we suspecting that they're using some of these items or the intoxicants or what?
There's a connection there, certainly, but let's say that I try a great whiskey and I want to bring it in to give someone that so they can bring it home. That's technically not allowed because it's unsealed, and here I am bringing it into the building. You know, in a
So you'd have to give them a new bottle that was unopened, basically.
yeah, or you know, not bring it into the building. Like, let's meet off duty.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of
Okay.
it could be just, it's not even looking at it as like the assumption that they're consuming it. It's a perception thing. Like if the public sees me walking into the building with a bottle of whiskey, regardless if I'm consuming it, that's just going to leave a bad image. So
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
upholding our good image with the public. That's another reason why this exists.
Good.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is tobacco products on duty, and talking about cultural change. It's I rarely see anyone smoke anymore, but this is
Thank God.
yeah. So members and employees shall not use any tobacco products while in direct contact with the public, within any city facility, city vehicle, or a public building, or within 20 feet of an entrance. So basically conforming to California law. Again, I haven't seen this in ever, but the range is counseling to S2, written to S3, S3 to S30.
But you could, if you're on a break, you could step out of your patrol car and take a smoke, right?
As long as we're not in contact with the public, yes.
Okay. All right.
And even that, I mean, it's an optic thing too, right? Like you don't want a cop just posted on the corner looking like they're loafing and loitering and just smoking the heater, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But okay, that makes sense. Oh, I was just gonna have another follow up to that, but yeah, I guess that all makes sense.
And what was the range on that?
Counseling to S2, written to S3, S3 to S30.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Possession of keys. No member employee, unless authorized by a competent authority, shall possess keys or proxy cards to any premise not his or her own, or in or near his or her area of assignment. So working in internal affairs, obviously I'm in possession of very confidential information here in my office. It's locked up within my locked office, but if someone decided to make a copy of my key, or let's say I was irresponsible and just gave someone a copy of my office key or the key, and that would be a violation of this section. We use proxy cards now, and we obviously with proxy cards, which are digital, we control a lot what people do, and it's also easy to audit. So I've never seen an issue with this.
So
But
when you
the
say proxy card, you mean like the card you use at a hotel to get in your room?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never knew it was called proxy card. Okay.
Yeah, it's called proximity card. It's short for proximity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so you can figure out what time those cards were used, correct?
Correct. And who
Okay.
used them. And I'll give you an example of where
And
we're
even who used them? Oh, okay.
yeah.
So then if someone took your card, it would come under your name and then you'd have to explain how someone got your card. You lost it, you misplaced it, whatever.
For sure. Or gave
Okay.
it. Let's say that, someone didn't have their key for the day. I'm okay with them using my proxy card, but it has to be in areas that they're allowed to be.
Right.
Yeah. So
And they would have to use it in your presence. You let them in and you take your card
Yeah.
back.
yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. And so what is the range, please?
Counseling to S2, written to S3, S3 to S30.
I guess I don't have a problem with that because if they use the card to do something illegal, like look up someone's file, I mean, I don't know how you could track that, but there would be a stiffer penalty.
Yes, for sure. Stiffer. Yeah. Okay.
I don't have a problem with the range.
Address, telephone numbers. We kind of addressed this before. So remember we talked about in our last meeting about being available for, let's say there's an earthquake, being available. So that's one section. The other section is this one, which is you not only have to be available, but you have to keep current your telephone number and address so we can get a hold of you, absent, you being on vacation. So this is where if I change my address or phone number, I have to go to our HR division and within 24 hours and update it. If I fail to do that, and yes, we do have issues with this sometimes. Counseling to S2, written to S3, S3 to S30. Yeah, and I'll tell you
Counseling to 2 days.
Yeah, yeah.
It's almost the equivalent of AWOL if somebody's trying to get in touch with you. Almost.
It's almost there. Yes. Of course, it's an aggravating factor if there's an absolute emergency and I can't get a hold of you. Absolutely aggravating. But the lesser form of that is like sometimes internal affairs gets a hold of people off duty to, like, let's say do an interview and we find out that their address is not current. It's not necessarily devastating that we get a hold of them right then and there, but still it's a violation of the policy. So that's why that lower range is there.
And I could see how someone could forget.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that was an intentional act. That seems more like you're forgetful. You forgot to do it. So I wouldn't like severely punish someone for that unless it just becomes a habit.
Yeah.
But then if an officer is moving around a lot too, that raises some sort of suspicion.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, moving is a stressful thing in itself, and I don't think too many people are thinking about having to update their address here at the police department, but still it's important to us and necessary for many reasons. So that's why we have that. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to preventable collision. Members and employees are responsible for the proper care of departmental property and equipment, minor vehicle collision. This is specific to minor collisions. There's varying degrees, of course, of damage and negligence there. But obviously we do have a lot of these. Just make it clear though, there's non-preventable collisions. So someone rear ends me. There's nothing I can do about that. There's no sustained finding behind that. This is where, let's say I back into a pole and damage the vehicle. The range on that is counseling to S3, written to S3, S3 to S30.
I'm not going to comment on that. As a teenager, I backed into a telephone pole.
Yeah.
In my mom's car.
Yeah. I think we all have.
Yeah, she was not pleased.
Yeah, but we spend a lot of time on driver's training, and I could tell you that's the most collisions we have are the slow speed into objects collisions.
I believe it. Yeah,
it's a big deal just because one, someone can get hurt, but our vehicles are expensive, and if we have to take it out of service to even repair a bumper, that could be devastating to our fleet and the next officer who needs to use it. So we do take it very seriously.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that raises a question. So do you have, I guess the force has extra vehicles. Let's say at any one time you have 50 officers that are out on the street. So I guess you would have 25 vehicles because they mostly drive in twos, right, in pairs.
We try not to put officers together only because,
Really?
well, the reason why is because it's a force multiplier. So if there's multiple calls for service, having one officer handle now 2 calls each is better than 2 officers handling one call. And we train that way, but you know, based on the number of personnel, the hours and things, or known issues that may happen that evening, officers could be paired up. Yeah, so it depends.
So you have more vehicles than officers that are out on the street at any given time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Ideal.
maybe 10 or 15 more or less.
Yeah. 2 officers going
I
up.
see how you skirted that issue.
No, I'm sorry.
That question.
I struggled to hear you. I didn't really hear your question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm really a rhetorical question. Like
I'm
if
sorry.
you have 2 extra vehicles versus 5 or 10 extra vehicles. So I wasn't really looking for an answer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I'm sorry if you hear the wind in the background, but I'm walking down the street. It was quite windy over the 16th Avenue Bridge. I apologize.
It's all good. All right. Any issues with the rain share counseling S3, written to S3, S3 to S30?
No.
Chair, I'm sorry. I realize we're now 6 minutes over. I just looked at the time.
Oh man, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. We still have a ways to go. I'll earmark this, but we have, I would say equal to what we covered tonight. If we do that the next time, we'll be officially done.
Okay.
All right.
But we won't convene again till August. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first week of August. I'm sorry, I'm gone the 2 days in July. It just so happens I'll be out of town. So August would be our next one. But like always, I'm going to send this out and hopefully that we can put eyes on it ahead of time and maybe work out some things via email. And maybe our next meeting would be even more quick. But
Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate you sending us the grid with everything that we need to cover. That was very helpful.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, super, super helpful. I also think, I mean, given that a lot of these are similar and have similar ranges, I think we need to look out for like some of the other conversations that we had today that were just like, ooh, these kind of seemed a little outlier in terms of just more severe. And I think as long as we could kind of go through this list, maybe via email and just to see if there's any of those that stand out to us, then we could call those out. And that could make the conversation a lot quicker as we come to a conclusion with this list.
Great.
Right, but the captain is going to be on vacation, so I'm sure he's not going to be answering any questions.
Yeah. No, it's gonna. I think to give you your time, Captain, and definitely don't want you to work while you're on vacation. But I think just more so for us to be able to look at, so we could flag for our next conversation.
Yeah.
I don't leave for another week and a half, so I'll definitely send things out and you can grab me before I'm gone. And then there's a break in between there. We just happen not to meet that week, so I'll be around. But the wife won't probably like me emailing.
Can we meet that week instead?
You can. It's up to Micah.
If we can squeeze that weekend that there's a break, we can get this done. I think we can get it done in 30 minutes, really.
Yeah.
Which week is that? Which week is that you're talking about? You said August, so the first one will be August 5th. What week are you talking about other than starting in August?
It's July.
So
one in July.
So the first and the 15th, I'm gone. So if we meet on the 8th, I'm here that week. We can actually knock it out. So it'd be the second week.
8th of July.
Second week of July. Yeah, the 8th.
Okay, let me pull over for a second and check my calendar right quick.
Or the 20s. I mean, we have the 22nd and the 29th of July also. It just didn't fall on our regular meeting dates. That's why I said that, but 8th, 22nd, 29th. Either one of those works.
I'll say this.
I can meet
sooner the
either
better.
one of those days because I think we can get this thing done in 45 minutes if we look at it, beforehand and do like Ricardo said.
Yeah.
Agree. Yep.
So for those dates, I might have to send you guys a Teams so that you guys can start that meeting yourself because I'm not going to be available that day on the 8th.
Okay, the 8th, I'm good.
22nd.
8th and the 22nd.
Okay, let me see the 22nd.
Kathy, you said you cannot do the 8th either?
No, I can do either day, the 8th or the 22nd.
I can too. So it's just
Of July.
Yes.
The 22nd would probably be best.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Awesome.
22nd. Okay.
Excellent.
At 6:00.
Did the meeting today start at 5:30?
No, 6:00.
Okay, for some reason it was on my calendar for 5:30, and so I thought I was really late. Okay, I don't know what happened.
So again, we're meeting on the 22nd, correct?
Of July.
And
Yes.
we just have that last 10 or 12 things to look at.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Almost there.
Hey, listen, you guys be good. Take care.
All right,
Thank you.
everybody have a good one. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.